Hi, I'm Byron Elton from Cancer Vax, here with Jeff Lipschitz, talking about stories about cancer. And as we know, the second leading cause of death globally. Jeff and I have been friends for many years. He's coming to us today from Santa Barbara, California. And in addition to his many other talents and accomplishments, he is a world-class photographer. And Jeff, real quickly, why don't you tell us a little bit about that photo behind you that you took?
Yes, I think I- I'm trying to get out the way so you could see most of it. That's the sort of, if you look at that photo, classic California,
Yeah.
um, the surfer, the sunset, the ocean, etc. Yeah. The strange thing is now, though, I have 25 photos at the Cottage Healthcare System hospitals in Santa Barbara, and they now moving their rehab hospital to the campus with the other hospitals, and they've asked me to submit photos again. And I would love to submit this photo that you see there, but I can't find it anywhere. The place it says is on the screen. So
Well, yeah,
anyway, that's the
yeah,
story of
and
that photo.
well, Jeff has traveled all over the world, and he's an extraordinary fellow. We've been friends for many years and have a lot in common. Not the least of which is we both contracted and had a surgery for prostate cancer. His story had a little bit of a different beginning, but we're both here to talk about it, and we'd like to spend a little bit of time just chatting about Jeff's experience and where he is right now. I'd like to start off by saying, Jeff is from South Africa. He now lives in Santa Barbara, so we know he's really smart in terms of his choices. And but he's retired now, but was a prominent doctor. And Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you went to school and your journey that took you through Canada for a bit, and then Las Vegas, and then out to Santa Barbara?
Well, do you have about an hour?
No, we have about 3 minutes.
3 minutes, right? So I grew up in South Africa, and during the apartheid era, and myself and my friends had discussed, that apartheid was wrong and that it would never last. But as physicians, we knew that we could always move to America if we had to. And then in 1976, I think Edward Kennedy came out and said, we have enough foreign physicians in the United States, and unless you in the country or clocked in by January 1977, there will be some kind of impediment. Well, you can imagine what that did to us, because you had no idea what the future would hold, but you had your family and you didn't want to feel trapped in there. So suddenly there was a big rush to apply and to enter the US, and moved. And not talking about myself necessarily, but thanks to Kennedy, the US got some very top rate, the best doctors from South Africa moved to the States.
Well, didn't your journey though take you through Canada, or was that after that?
No, that was in the middle. Um, I was actually working in research and in academics at the University of Tennessee. We were actually the first group of high risk of the new subspecialty called maternal fetal medicine. And this was brand new. I was probably one of the first fellows. And then after a few years, probably about 7 years, I got an offer from Calgary, from the department there, to head up the obstetric division, which I think they also were looking at, not necessarily subspecializing, but focusing more on high-risk pregnancy. And they made me an offer. It was hard to refuse, and the experience. And eventually I ended up head of the department. and then moved back to the States after 4 years.
Las Vegas,
Yes,
which was mostly important because that's where you met your wife,
that's correct.
Michelle, and
Right.
have been living in Santa Barbara for some time now, which is where we became acquainted. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about. Obviously, you're a guy that who understands the human body in a way that most of us don't. Know that there are things that you need to be keeping track of. In my case, as we told you, I ignored it and almost lost my life because of it. I was very, very fortunate. You, on the other hand, were very proactive as it pertained to your indicators and whatnot. Why don't you talk about that and that what led you to your eventual surgery with in the USC system?
I retired from my practice in the year 2000, 23 years ago, hard to believe. But what I focused on at that time was health, and really started focusing on the many ways to keep healthy and active. And one of them was, besides the usual eating and exercise, etc., but I had my blood work done, I'd say almost every 6 months. And I followed my PSA very carefully, because even many years ago, sometimes it had gone up, but it was prostatitis. And so I followed it carefully, and then it went up to about 5.5. And that concerned me, and we watched it very carefully, and it didn't really go out to the fives. One time it might have gone to low 6, came back to low, and I must have watched that for a year and a half, 2 years maybe. And eventually I thought, this is not really normal, and maybe I'm not being proactive enough. So I saw my family physician. He said, well, let's just watch it. It's in the 5s. I went to see a urologist who happens to be a prostate specialist. And he also didn't really want to do too much, said, let's watch it. So I said to him, we have nothing to lose by doing an MRI, which is non-invasive, and there's no radiation. And I said, let's do it as a baseline. So if things change, we can at least see the change. That seemed to make sense to him. We did it. And lo and behold, it was very suspicious of cancer. So then I had the biopsies, and actually the MRI helped with the biopsies, because the radiologist who did it could match, he did it under ultrasound guidance, and he could use the MRI pictures to see exactly where to go with the needle. So it wasn't going blindly into the prostate. And this came back showing cancer, not only cancer, but a cribriform pattern, which is not a good pattern to have. You don't want to not have been more active with that kind of pattern. And I think it is a Gleason score of about 7. So I then pursued what to do next. Should I have a prostatectomy or radiation, or watch it, or the other choices also? And also radiation had improved. There's now sort of single beam targeted radiation. And the bottom line was that my prostate was actually too big to do the radiation. And if I wanted to do radiation, it wasn't excluded, but I would then have to have hormone therapy for 6 months first to try and shrink the prostate, and on, and which would be delaying it even further. So I decided then and there, with my wife, we decided to do a radical prostatectomy robotically.
And you were in the USC system.
Yes.
In fact, weren't you operated on by Dr. Gill?
That's correct. So we saw him before, and there's no one, well, I wouldn't say no one, but he's obviously got the most experience, very experienced, I should say, and has done a tremendous number of these. So, and this was done January the 7th, 2022, last year.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Gill heads up the department at USC.
That's correct.
And as I say to people, if you're the Sultan of Brunei and you have prostate cancer and you can see anybody in the world, Andy Gill's the guy that you'll go see. Or if you're apparently Jeff Lipschitz. And so all's well that it was very successful for you. And so January, so you're 4 months out from it.
No, January last year. So I'm
January of last year, yeah.
Months out.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Boy, time flies.
Time flies, right?
Yeah. And
6 weeks after my surgery, I went to Australia.
Ah, that's right.
Right.
And your subsequent blood work has shown that your
my PSA has been non-detectable.
Non-detectable.
Under 0.02, as you know.
So the lesson from you is particularly because, as you and I have shared our respective stories, I thought I was the last guy that was ever going to get any sort of cancer,
right?
Because of my lifestyle and never smoked. I don't drink. I've been plant-based for finding out that, there are certain kind of cancers. It doesn't matter. And you have to be so incredibly vigilant. So what's your message to all the men out there?
My message is, simply get your PSA done at least yearly. Yeah. And what's happened was, this people want to save money and they say, well, we're not going to pay for your PSA test. If you're about certain ages, they keep changing. The government keeps changing and sort of cutting down. Is it really worth it? They're not looking at the individual, Was it worth it for you and me? For sure. It saved our lives.
Yeah.
But, you can look at it from another way. Well, if we have to do 1 million tests and it costs X amount and you save whatever number of lives, is that worth it? Well, you see what I mean? It's worth it for the people whose lives you save, maybe not worth for them spending millions of dollars to save 2 people's lives. So that's the view. So as an individual, I'm saying to people, it's your life and do what you need to do to stay healthy into older age.
And the reality is that for most men, you're going to get prostate cancer. The trick is to make sure that you are monitoring it regularly and catching it before it becomes the problem that it did for you and I. So, exactly. And, they've come a long way, as you know, Jeff. I mean, traditionally, they treat all sorts of cancers, typically with surgery, with chemotherapy, and that's a whole nother discussion, and then radiation, which I actually went through. You won't have to do that. But there's been so much work being done, particularly as a result of COVID and the remarkable work that was done very, very quickly in developing these vaccines. And so, as we mentioned, there's all kinds of people around the world that are working on this. As you know, CancerVax is working with the folks at UCLA to develop a cancer vaccine, very aspirational and very hopeful. I certainly think it's worth our resources and our support. And anybody that would like to know more, you can visit us at cancervax.com for more information. We've been talking with Jeff Lipschitz. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate your sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.